All right, guys, we're finally back in the studio. Where the heck have I been? Last episode was Heydays, which was controlled chaos at its best. Background sound, four-wheelers going by, quads, side-by-sides, everything. People chatting, but it was fun. We had like 6 or 7 guests on because we just kept having people sit down and kick them off for 10 minutes. And before that, I think I was in C-Boy's setup, used their place. So it's been like 3 episodes since we've actually been in the studio. But we just had our kickoff to winter, which is the grand opening of our experience center here at 509, which is you come in and learn, touch the gear, feel the gear, try it on, learn exactly what's right for you. And we just had that huge party, grand opening Saturday. And Caleb Kesterke stuck around for an extra couple days to do a podcast with me. Even though I know you got other stuff going on, I like feeling like saying that you stuck around for
feel that important.
Yeah. That important. You stuck around for us. So
Of
Caleb,
course.
by popular demand, welcome to the podcast finally.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Right off the bat, I just kind of want to say everything you've been doing in the sled world has definitely been noticed. Your level of progression, the way you've been pushing things, your like unique style of riding, dude, is like inspired a new generation, the older generation, the current generation, everyone, dude. So like round of applause from me to you for what you've been doing over the last few years because it's been fun to watch.
Well, I appreciate it. That might be a little generous with the applause, but
I think
it's been a fun journey.
I have an applause button on here somewhere, but I don't know which one it is.
Just hit them all. One at a time.
Should we try this one?
Oh, you nailed it.
So Caleb, when you first started sledding, you're from Sealy Lake, Montana, right?
Yeah, born and raised.
You've documented it well on social media, kind of your early years. But what was your like initial introduction? Do you remember the first time you swung your leg over a sled?
I don't know if I remember it or I just remember people telling me about it because it's one of those things like, do you actually have the memory or do you just have the memory of hearing about it?
Right.
But my parents bought me a little 120 Mini Z when I was 2 years old, so still wearing a diaper. And they just took me out to this plowed road and were like, well, here's the throttle, here's the brake, go for it. And pretty sure I pinned it and went right into a snowbank and flipped the sled over on top of myself.
Well, that was like, talk about foreshadowing.
Right. It was a re-entry, basically.
Yeah.
A crashed re-entry. So that was like the very start of it. And just grew up like riding around in fields and my dad was really into riding as well as my grandpa. So they really pushed me and kind of created an obsession at a young age. My grandpa set up that little 120 Mini Z with wheels on the skis and then let me ride it all summer.
Take the governor off of it too?
Yeah, eventually.
Yeah.
I mean, I was 2, so the governor
okay,
stayed on for a
fair,
little while.
fair.
But it was off by the time I was 5 or so.
Yeah.
So it really just kind of threw me to the wolves and pushed me into it. And it was a hobby and I loved doing it, but it wasn't like this crazy obsession until later in life. But I guess that still hit pretty young. Rode with my dad. I have a lot of memories of just getting like pushed in the trees and riding with him, being forced to progress just so I could keep up and go out of the mountain with him. And then I think I was 13. I was just watching YouTube videos, and Brant was kind of my hero at the time. So I was watching videos of him, and there's this clip of him riding trees, doing that gnarly side hill on an old cat.
Well, you remember the clip even.
Oh, yeah. I remember this very specific moment. Like, it was dumping snow. George Marsh was the filmer. And, oh, yeah, I remember it all. And I'm about 2 minutes into this YouTube video, and I see Brant just holding a nasty side hill, chewing on a cat. And it hits me like, that's what I want to do. Like, I want to be that guy in the film doing that maneuver because that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. And then at that point on, I was like, okay, how do I become that guy?
Right.
And that's why I'm here.
So not many people know this, but you have a huge family. You have a lot of siblings. So how many do you have? You're what of what?
I am the oldest of 8 total.
Oh man, that's a lot of brothers and sisters.
All full siblings.
Yeah. That's wild. So what I was getting at there was there anybody else in the family that became interested? Any of your brothers or sisters? Like, or was it just kind of This is Caleb, and he's obsessed with snowmobiles.
Yeah, nobody took it to the same level, that's for sure. But most of them ride at least a little bit. And for them, it's kind of like after school, they go rip around the field or go out with dad once in a while.
Yeah.
And then there's obviously Isaac, who most guys probably know of. And he rides with me all winter long.
Yeah, his progression has been awesome to watch. You've really kind of taken him under your wing, and he's helped you out a lot with, it looks like, some of your clinics, and then you helping him out as well.
Yeah, it's a good trade. He's shot a huge portion of my content, and now has helped me a lot with my business as well. So I guess it's just been a good trade back and forth. He helps me out, and then I provide him a sled and help him out with gear or whatever else he needs, parts.
Right. That's rad. So this is kind of a two-part thing. There's one, what was the sled that kind of opened up the backcountry to you? Because then I'm going to follow up with the first video I remember seeing of you. So did you build a sled first, or did you build a tube chassis also?
So no, Kyle Saxton built a full tube chassis, but I built like this exoskeleton on the rev. So it kind of looked like a tube chassis, and it was a fully modded out sled, mostly like homemade welded mods.
Right.
But I didn't do the full tube chassis like he did. I think the tunnel and the running boards was all tube, and then an exoskeleton with mesh over it.
Rad. Was that kind of the sled that opened up your mind to what you can do in the backcountry, or at least places you can get to?
Yeah, that sled was a piece of shit. Like I had so many. I put 9,000 miles on that sled.
9,000.
So that was the first sled I ever bought. I bought it from my dad, and I had to work for him for like 4 summers in a row to save up enough money to buy it. But I rode it forever because I couldn't afford to buy a new one.
Yeah.
And then modded it out, and then in the end, it had like 3 different motors in it, and 9,000 miles, and like chassis parts from whatever I could find off eBay, basically.
That's impressive. Now, I remember seeing, I want to say, you can fact check me, obviously you will know, some blue like vertical escape.
Oh, yeah. So I had the Rev, that was that tube chassis or whatever, modded out sled. And then that thing kind of just quit on me mid-season. I had to pull it home by hand one day. Yeah, I blew it up for like the 3rd time that year. And I did all my own mechanicking. That was part of why I had so many issues. So I was like 15 rebuilding my own motors with no supervision.
And it checks out.
Yeah, stuff happens. And I pulled it home by hand. It was only a couple miles, and it was a groom trail, so it's not like...
No, that's pretty gnarly. Impressive. Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
But so pulled it home, and then I was like, I'm not fixing this thing again. Like, there's no way.
Yeah.
Like I pulled so many all-nighters working on that thing. Like, I just want to start fresh. So that's when I went and bought that blue Edge chassis.
Yeah, yeah.
And just kept it bone stock. I like raised the handlebars a little bit, and then I just continued to push on that.
That's the sled I remember seeing you push on first, because you were doing some, like that was the first kind of glimpse of the Caleb we know today.
Yeah.
You were elevatoring that thing. Yeah. You were like trying so hard to figure out re-entries on it. I mean, you're essentially riding a bathtub around. Like you can open the hood and crawl into those things. It's like an old Chevy truck.
Right.
There's so much room in there. But I just remember seeing that going, and I think, what year was that? Not the sled, but what time, actual year was that?
I'm not sure. Maybe 2011, 2012.
Yeah. So there was like significantly better snowmobiles out there at the time. And you were doing something or things on that sled that was better than a lot of guys could do on a brand new 2011, whatever it may be. And I remember watching that video going like, who is this kid? And you were just like experimenting.
Yeah, it really was. I just wanted to learn new things. And like, what was fun to me was going out and just trying a new maneuver and practicing something and seeing if it would work. I didn't really enjoy doing tree lines forever or climbing chutes or that style of riding. And I wasn't into jumping at the time. So doing like turn downs, re-entries, utilizing the terrain Sealy has just to see what I could come up with.
Yeah, that's rad. I've always wondered, I got a lot of questions for you because I've had a lot of mysteries. For how much I've hung out with you, I've never really got the full in-depth history. First time I met you was, 2015, 16, maybe?
I don't remember when we met.
Yeah, it was maybe like 16 or 17.
What were we doing?
It was a film premiere, I think.
Probably.
You weren't in it, but you were just like signed a deal, I think.
Yeah, I think
or we were talking about doing a deal. But at that time, before 519 stuff, had you dabbled with a little bit of filming of like Thunderstruck or?
Yeah, the first filming I ever did was with Motorfist.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember Taylor Fist
Oh yeah.
or not.
Yep.
Yeah, so he kind of got me on the scene filming wise, and the first stuff I ever shot was with him. Unfortunately, we shot a bunch of stuff on that modded Rev, but he didn't pull permits, and the Forest Service caught us in the parking lot.
Oh, in the parking lot.
Well, also, yeah, that's a long story. But anyway, we got busted and couldn't use any of the footage. So none of that got used. But then I think it was later that spring, I borrowed a Pro and we did another film shoot. And that was like one of the first YouTube videos that was actually like done well, was ever published. And I did like, I don't know, 1 million hopovers in it or something. That's pretty much all the video was.
No, I remember. So at that point, I mean, was that all of a sudden, now the video you referenced of watching Barant, right? Now you're kind of producing that. Was that just the next level of motivation? Like, okay, I've got to this point now. Let's check that off the box. Where can we go from here?
I don't really get that feeling. Like, I don't feel like I've checked anything off the box. Like, I feel like I'm still the kid that wants it so bad. I just don't, I'm not at a place in my life, and I'm not at a place with sledding where I'm like stoked on it or satisfied. There's just so much more I'm trying to do.
That's an interesting mindset. We hear some people that have this invisible checklist and different, tiers of their career they want to hit. But I like that. I mean, that's kind of, you're not putting easy to reach goals for yourself. You're kind of putting the ceiling way up here where you want to be eventually.
Yeah. I think I am I do check off those things off the checklist, but they just never actually feel as good as I expect them to. And they don't really slow me down or motivate me.
Yeah.
It just is like, okay, well, that happened. Now I'd have the next thing I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
The only one that I really look back on and still appreciate, I guess, is a factory ride. Cause that was something that I was told was impossible by multiple people, and it felt unattainable most of my life. And then when I signed that contract with Polaris, that felt pretty good. And I still reflect on that. Like, that is something that I thought I would never be able to do.
Yeah. I felt good for you. I was kind of
you
along for that ride. That was wild. I remember getting the call from you, and you were like, oh, Caleb's actually genuinely stoked sounding. I was like, this is rare.
Yeah,
he sounds pumped.
Normally only get excited if I land a 270 flip or something.
Yeah, I've seen both sides of that, the landing it and not landing it. So Caleb, through your career, you've taken a lot of inspiration from Barant for sure in the early years. Nowadays, I know you spent some time, you and I did actually together with Andreas Bergmark in Canada a few years ago. And that was cool to see you too, because you were very similar riding styles at the time and just thriving off each other. But now I don't want to put you in a league of your own, because I know you're extremely humble, but do you have somebody right now that you're like, damn, I wish I could be doing that, or I really look up to their style, or trying to, figure out how they're moving the sled in this way? Is there somebody on your list right now that you keep an eye on pretty consistently?
I don't know if I do, partly because I'm not pushing the athletic side as much as I was a couple years ago, because I'm trying to turn it. I'm a little more career focused now. I still am pushing and want to get better on a sled. Obviously, that'll never stop. But there's not someone that I'm going out and studying their clips all the time like I used to. 2 years ago, I was really focusing on some backcountry freestyle. So Brett Turcotte stuff was on my radar a ton. This last winter, though, it was really just, I didn't get a chance to even really think about pushing myself that much, because I was just so far behind on business. I do take a lot of inspiration from guys that have turned it into a business and are successful. And kind of interestingly enough, Brant was a huge inspiration when I was younger. And then when I started pushing hard on 270 flips and more Andreas style riding, I didn't really look up to him at all. And
Barant or Andreas?
Barant.
Yeah.
I kind of didn't care what he did. Right. And because he's just riding trees, and it's it's the same tree line. Yeah. And I was watching the Swedes a lot more, Turcotte, and guy like McNulty, guys that are doing the flips and bigger airs. well, now that I'm like thinking about business a lot more, now I'm watching Branting and like, wow, like I have a lot
Full
more
circle.
Yeah. I have so much more respect for what he's done now that I'm trying to do something similar.
Yeah, he's built kind of a little empire. I almost look at what he's done as like, what is it, the NASCAR driver, Tom Petty. Wait, Penny or Petty? Somebody's going to call me out on that in the comments. One's a musician, one's a NASCAR driver. Either way, he has an experience at a racetrack, right, where he's never even there now. It's just his legacy lives on. It's a driving school. And I've always wondered, I want to get Brant on someday, and I'd like to see it like that for him in the future, where like he's not necessarily there anymore. Like maybe it's 30, 40 years from now even, but that Brant's Backcountry Adventure lives on with his name and just kind of that legend status, if you will. And it's still like a clinic and there's a new generation running it, but in his name or honor in the industry. So it's interesting to watch what he's crafted there. And that's a kind of perfect segue for what you have going on now. Proven Progression, dude. That name speaks for itself.
Yeah, I had a really hard time picking a name, and I don't know if I'm still. Oh, I'm getting too far away from the mic.
Sorry.
Yeah, I had a hard time picking a name, and it's like I want the name to mean something, and I just ended up settling on Proven Progression because it really does kind of sum up how I live my life, and like especially like what I do on a sled. And yeah, so now I guess I would say like previously progression was all I cared about. That's all I focused on.
Yeah.
Pretty much every aspect of life was put on hold while I tried to progress my riding skill. And that's where the name came from. And now I'm trying to do the same thing business-wise and just getting started. So like last year was the first year I ever came out ahead at the end of winter, which was a pretty good feeling. And hopefully it just continues to grow from there.
So you can't tell me that was not a goal of some sort. For one that says he doesn't have goals.
Well, I have goals. I just don't reach the goals and then like get that stoked up. Yeah, no, that's a goal for sure. Or was a goal, is a goal, continues to be like the focus. So I did like last year was the first winter ever. I came out and I made more money riding snowmobiles than I would have swinging a hammer.
Yeah.
So that was
That's
a good feeling.
Feel good. Yeah. That's what is this year 2 that you just did?
Year 3 as Proven Progression.
Okay. First year of the new lodge though, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So getting that going at your age, dude, that's a lot of moving parts. I bet, I mean, I can only imagine there's got to be that fear of like, are people even going to come?
Yeah.
Putting all that time into it, investing into it.
Yeah. Well, in the first like couple years of doing clinics, people didn't come. I had like 3 guys at my first clinic.
Yeah.
And it didn't even cover like my expenses. So it cost me money to go out and teach a clinic, which is fine. That's part of business.
Yeah.
But you know, it kills a little bit of the stoke. But it got better every year. And then last year I really did step out on a limb trying to get the lodge done, but I did it in a safe way. Like my dad helped out with financing the place, and he's a part owner in it. So bought a place.
That's cool.
Or he actually owned the place, and I renovated it and got it ready for clients basically. So it was like fairly low risk compared to like trying to finance $1 million lodge or something.
You're in a cool position having your day job be able to play into what you're almost want to call it your day job now is snowmobiling. Obviously you still do a lot of construction, but you're fortunate enough to have that skill set to be able to combine those two things and then have this final product for people to come stay at in extremely early in your career still.
Yeah, it was kind of cool to like have so many clients come in and like see my work on the lodge. Unfortunately, it wasn't like necessarily like a high-end custom home like I would like to do because I was a little rushed. But you know, it's these guys they come in, they see all the all my carpentry skills or like labor I put into that, and then we go ride on the mountain. And it was cool because I felt like people actually really respected the effort put into it.
Yeah, I still haven't seen it.
Yeah,
Last season was complete chaos.
It really was.
From Mother Nature to everything you had going on. Like, I got to get over there this winter. I kind of want to sign up for a clinic for fun.
Yeah, you should.
Like, no cameras, no work, and just...
Oh, you just want to...
Like, watch you do your thing. Yeah. I've done it with Chris, Dan, and Sane. I've done all of theirs as like a fly on the wall. And it'd be fun to check yours off the list also.
Yeah.
There's my goal list for the winter. Go on proven progression ride.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely come take along on an advanced clinic, or I'm doing what I'm calling a pro ride this year, which is like the advanced clinic, but it's like another step above. And we're going to focus more on sled setup, how to shoot camera angles of stuff to make it look big.
Dude.
Yeah. And like how to negotiate sponsorship contracts. It's designed for guys that are really good riders, but and they're really good riders that want to make an impact on the industry, but they're not quite there yet. So kind of like coaching and guiding that aspect of it.
Where are you coming up with these ideas for these clinics? Because you've broken it down really well. I mean, I've read through your website from beginner to intermediate to advanced, and kind of what your tiers consist of. And you kind of throw out some terminology there that if you're a beginner rider, you might not even understand. You know, if you're more of an intermediate to advanced, you're like, yes, this makes sense to me. I've tried this stuff. So like this one you're just talking about, this pro class, is just single-handedly you, or are you brainstorming with your brother or your dad or your girlfriend, or just
pretty much
the gears turning?
Yeah. My head is doing some work thinking about snowmobiles when I'm out there working construction.
Dude, the creativity, that's a cool new approach. There's never been anything like that in our industry.
Yeah, I think it'll be really cool. Like there's not that many riders that it'd be helpful for, but the ones that want to do it, it could be extremely helpful for.
Yeah. And then
I just think about like what I would have wanted at each part of my journey, what would have benefited me. And that's what I'm trying to provide to someone else.
Yeah, that's cool. Now that you have the platform available, it's kind of it's in your hands to dictate what it looks like. But we've had a couple, let's see, I think Phil, who's our event coordinator at 509, did a jump clinic with you last year.
Yeah.
And then Bill in product design is going to do one of them with you this winter also. So
yeah,
that's like, for me, I'm like so stoked hearing that internal employees at 509 at your sponsor are like going out of their way to do a clinic with you because they're equally stoked.
Yeah.
Like that's one of those full circle scenarios for me where all of a sudden the guy that we sponsored, we have internal interest in like going to ride with him and learn from you.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. It's wild to think that not only am I sponsored by such a cool company, but the company's employees are they're not asking for a discount or anything. They're just like paying full price to come out and ride because they want to support it.
That's so rad. Because I mean, there's a lot of people that would be like, Caleb, can I tag along and teach me a few things? But that just speaks for itself that they want to go out and support you because you love your program, what you've been doing, and want to help continuously progress the thing.
Yeah, I think it speaks to their character too. Like they're more worried about supporting someone getting going than saving a few bucks.
Right. Caleb, kind of the elephant in the room for you the last couple seasons, or last season here, has been you've kind of filled us in a little bit on Instagram stories and showing some of the stuff you've been doing to get yourself healthy, but I don't know how much you want to dive into it, but I know a lot of people are curious on what's going on for your injury. You got a lot of eyes on you and a lot of people that love seeing what you do and care about, your well-being. And I think there's kind of some mystery on exactly what's going on. So if you want to fill us in a little more in depth, I mean, I'm sure I personally would love to hear it. I don't even know all of it. And of course, all the fans do too.
Yeah. I haven't shared a ton, partly because over the summer, I just wasn't in a great headspace. And when you're like down in the dumps, it's pretty hard to talk about much anything, especially in a public platform.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm doing a little bit better now and pretty open about everything. And I want to kind of share some of the journey because maybe some of what I'm going through and the treatments I'm trying, they might help someone else out there too. So basically, I started getting into freestyle like 3.5 years ago. And I'm sure you remember seeing some of that. Mm-hmm. Built a freestyle compound just outside of Sealy and was practicing there. I had one weekend successful, like didn't have any crashes. And then the next weekend, first hit of the day, I overshot the landing by like 25 feet. So I had really bad nerves. And when you're really scared to do something, you kind of just shut your brain off to block the fear out. And when you do that, a lot of the calculations get shut out too.
Right.
So I just overshot, which I do in the backcountry all the time. I go deep on my first hit and you get praised for it. And like you land hard, but you ride it out because you have so much room to work with in the backcountry. Well, off a ramp, that's a different story because you only have like a 40-foot sweet spot.
Yeah, once you run out of bag, it's just
dirt. It's just frozen dirt in my case too. So I went past the airbag and landed in the flat on frozen dirt, and took the handlebars to the throat, hit my face on like the hood, knocked myself out, and so got a bad concussion and took a ton of whiplash trauma to my neck basically. I was like, wasn't very coherent for a while, just kind of chilled out there for a couple hours and then drove myself home. Sat on the couch that evening, got up the next day, went to work, like, just like what we would do. And I didn't feel terrible at work, but my neck had like felt pretty jacked up. So I went and got some imaging done. Nothing showed up on imaging. Like doctors like, oh, your neck's bruised. Like, okay, cool. Went back at that point. That was all I had for imaging. That's all I had done from a doctor. Just went back to normal life. So continued working, went into that season. I had pretty bad concussion symptoms for a while, like some depression and slurred speech and just like standard concussion stuff. That's all I thought I had, with like maybe some soft tissue damage in my neck. And I fought it that year, but and it slowed me down, but I jumped all season. Like it slowed me down, but I still was functioning. And then that summer I recovered. I was 100%. So this was not this summer, but the summer before. Right. Felt great all summer. I was trail running, lifting, working insane hours. And then last winter, I felt good going into winter, felt good the first part of winter, and then the symptoms started coming back. I think it was about the end of January. So the symptoms came on at first. They were pretty manageable. It was just like kind of the same thing as a year before, where it slowed me down, but I was still functioning. And then it got to the point where I couldn't function. I could barely get out of bed. And I had a day where I was guiding this group of like 8 riders, I think it was. And I basically just sat on my sled all day and Isaac guided them because I was like so rough. Like I didn't know I thought I might like have a stroke if I turned my neck too fast or something.
What was the reoccurring pain? Like, what was it? Was it just head to toe, just excruciating pain, or was it strictly back pain? Or
no, I never really had that much pain. My worst symptoms were like this insane brain fog and dizziness, vertigo.
That's scary.
To the point where I just wasn't very coherent. Like I'd struggle to carry on a conversation. And it fluctuated, and I didn't really know what was going on. And I just kept kind of trying to push through. And I mean, we're all kind of like that, you know, we don't really go to the doctor unless we absolutely have to. But it finally hit me on one day on the mountain when I couldn't like handle the group that I was with. I was like, okay, time to go get some imaging done. And so that was February of last year. I got some imaging done. Nothing came back on that. Like another set of x-rays, there's nothing. Like the doctor's like, oh, you have great neck structure. Like your discs are good. Like you look fine. So finished out the clinic season and was still riding the beginning of March and still like trying to figure it out. And the symptoms were just so bad I couldn't push through anymore. So at that point, I quit riding and like treated the injury like my full-time job, basically. Yeah. So I went through like 4 doctors locally and didn't get a diagnosis. They didn't find anything at all.
Dude, that's got to be the wildest part, is knowing something's wrong.
Yeah.
And everybody telling you everything checks out.
Yeah. I had every kind of imaging you could do in Missoula done. And they're like, well, you look like there's nothing that explains your symptoms. You look pretty good. Like maybe you need antidepressants. Like, oh, that's not what I need. Like there's something wrong and I know it's in my neck.
Yeah.
So at that point I started traveling to see specialists, and I went down to Florida, saw a specialist there, had a new type of imaging done, which is an x-ray, while the neck's under motion. So like during flexion and extension and then laterally side to side. And basically what that showed is that my vertebrae were like stair stepping every time I look down or look up, and especially while riding because there's so much force on the neck. And what that was doing is basically they would stair step and like run into my spinal cord and cause spinal cord trauma.
Holy shit.
And they diagnosed me with cranial cervical instability. Basically what that is are the ligaments in the neck are stretched out, like they're too long and they're not holding the vertebrae where they're supposed to be.
You basically have like slack in them.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So it's not really a sprain. It's more they're just stretched, and it could have been from years of whiplash. Like, there's been a few times I've hit my face on the handlebars.
Right.
And I was in a car wreck when I was younger too. That was pretty bad and caused some neck trauma. So I don't know if it was a cumulative thing and then that one injury off the freestyle ramp just did me in or what. But I got that diagnosis, and then since then been just like full force on rehab. Started out with prolotherapy injections and then decided to go straight to stem cells, and I found a doctor in Colorado.
Oh, you did do stem cells?
Yeah. I did a full round.
I've heard a lot of good things about that.
Yeah, I think that was a smart move. Prolotherapy can heal a lot of things, but stem cells are, if you can afford it or can find someone to do it, stem cells are far better.
Yeah.
So it started with that. And after my stem cell procedure in June, my symptoms came back far worse. I was barely functioning in like June and July. And those who like follow my content really closely probably realize I didn't really do stories or like anything in June, July, and even part of August. I was still pretty rough. So I was working construction as much as I could and not really doing much physical stuff. But there were days like I would just leave at 10 in the morning or noon and just go home and lay in bed.
Yeah.
So it was pretty rough, and I didn't talk about it a lot just because, one, I thought I was going to get better. Like along this whole journey, it's like, oh, another week of this and then I'll be getting better. Right. It's like, oh, I'll get stem cells and then, 2 weeks later I'll be improving and I'll be getting better. And that's just it's been a lot slower process than I was expecting. So I didn't want to talk about this injury. Like I just wanted to get back to slaying, like get back to like working long days, kicking ass in the gym and riding sleds like a maniac.
Yeah.
But that's not the reality. And this injury is a lot more severe than I anticipated. And the recovery journey is going to be a lot longer than I was planning.
Wow. Dude, that's shitty. I mean, that's the reality of it. Yeah, I praise you for the amount of effort you're putting into your body and trying to get back to 100%, but you're well aware it's a journey, and it sounds like every single week's different right now.
Yeah,
ever
really
changing, and
yeah.
But you're doing whatever it takes, and you're handling it in the right way, which is all you really can do right now.
Yeah, I try to go to bed every day knowing that I did the step, like everything I could that day to heal.
Yeah,
like I'm treating healing like I treated progression on a sled. Like
right.
I have to put that amount of effort into this injury to get back to riding. There's a lot of athletes that take injuries and they never come back from them, and I don't want to be that guy, and I'm willing to do whatever work it takes to not be that guy.
Where are we at present day now?
So I am improving. It's like I said before, a lot slower than I was expecting, and it's looking good for riding this winter, but there's definitely not going to be any big jumps, and I don't expect there to be any big jumps or like 270 flips or like abuse on the body. So
after this, I think everybody understands, man. Everybody's in your corner here. Please don't. I think people are going to be telling you don't, even if you want to.
Yeah, right. So. Yeah, I am going to be riding this winter. Focus being clinics and content, and I have a huge list of how-to content I want to do this year. Yeah. So it'll be a good season to pull back from pushing as hard and focus more on like educational stuff that I'm actually really excited to put out and work on. And yeah, I still have like 3 months before I need to start riding, so I still have a lot of time to recover. And I could ride right now, and I think I would be okay, but I'm like right on that edge. So that's actually part of why I'm still here and didn't go home after the event is I'm trying out some new treatment options here in Spokane.
Well, I appreciate you sharing it, dude. I know it's kind of a roller coaster for you. And there's just been countless people who just love what you do, man. You're just wondering, like, people genuinely care about your well-being and who you are and your progression. So, I mean, thanks for filling us in. There was a lot to that story that I didn't know about either. But dude, yeah, just keep doing what you're doing. It's your mindset sounds like you're totally in the right direction. And just, yeah, I mean, no 270 flips, please. That's all.
Yeah, I might have to hold off. I anticipate that this year will be rough, and I'll struggle through it and kind of just focus on business this year, and then the following winter, I'm hoping I can get back to like pushing hard again.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll never be able to take the same types of impacts I did before, but that doesn't mean I can't still progress and still work on my riding. I might just have to learn to be a little smoother and work on being more calculated.
Hey, we could see a whole new era of Caleb in new styles. Knowing you, dude, you'll figure out a way to pioneer something that nobody has seen still.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Hey, I remember the first time I did a bow tie with you, I just wanted to make sure you were watching, and I was like, I now need to go down and do them with Barant again, but for my era, like Barant was definitely the Caleb of my generation, right? I'm putting you as your own like legend in this generation.
That's too much pressure.
But to do one in front of you too, I was like, checked off the list. I was like, Caleb saw it. All right, carry on.
I did see it. You've progressed a ton over the last few years. Just since we started filming and riding together, it's been pretty impressive.
Learning from guys like you. But that was my segue right there is your YouTube channel. Like your how-tos, everything. Dan Adams also is doing a lot of that stuff too, but you guys are doing totally different information that is just still as interesting and is necessary for the people in the industry. But you have pushed your YouTube channel, dude, and your production quality, everything. There's some shots that I'm like, make me feel kind of bad. I'm like, dude, that was good. Like that was really good. And that's just falls into the same mindset you have for everything, is just kind of doing it to your best. And even if it's not the best to you, others are really appreciating the level of effort. But what I'm getting at there is I think that's kind of it's a tough barrier to entry for guys to get into the YouTube thing for sure. Like you had to learn how to use a camera, what camera to get. I know you asked me, you asked a bunch of other filmers, but you put the time in to figure it out, and it has elevated who you are as a rider and put your name out there even more.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's just it's a slow process, and people think like, you got a new camera, your shots are so much better. I was like, well, no, like I've been working at getting shots since I was 13, and it's I learned a couple of things that year, learned a couple of things the next year, then like filmed with you and like watched what you did, and tried to pick up some of the things that you did, and tried to get advice from Stephen Clark and you and whoever else I could ask to try to improve that aspect of it too. Being a good rider just doesn't really get you that far, like in this industry. Like you have to do business, you have to be a rider, you have to be your own filmer.
I think we have a similar outlook on it, because I've had a lot of people reach out of, how can I become more of an athlete or a personality, whatever it may be. How can I become more relevant in the industry? And kind of a reoccurring thing lately has been like, take the helmet off. It was sick. I loved the Sled Next films. I loved all our 519 stuff we did. Seeing people push sledding, 5 minutes of just gnarliness, but nobody knew who you were. You came to a premiere, and like, if we didn't go out of our way to say like, this is Cody Borchers, a lot of time people didn't know because there was helmets on. Nobody has a face to the name. And now, like yourself, you've built this personality that's like a household name now, and people know who you are, helmet off. And that just makes it more appealing to everyone, including from sponsors to just viewers. And you go to these events, you go to like this weekend, and they feel like they already know you in a sense, and they can instantly just strike up a conversation, and it's a bit more natural feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a different era now. Like it's a social media era. So people see what you post all day long on your stories, and then, see more of a polished product when you make your reels or posts or YouTube episodes. And I think you see that across the board in all industries, not just sledding. Like the pro, or not maybe, like I guess like pro football players and like movie stars they get less attention, and Instagram influencers and people that are more relatable are getting more attention.
Yeah. So that fine balance of being relatable and still pushing the sport. That's kind of what I've been telling people lately. Like, if you want to kind of become more of a name. It's like people got to know who you are. Like they got to be able to relate to you. They got to know your personality. And I mean, you just dove in head first, dude, on the YouTube thing and like knocked it out of the park.
Oh, thank you. I had a lot of help from Kyle Saxton too last year. Like he's
Both
trying to
of you
do
guys. Yeah.
a similar thing with YouTube and shot a ton of content for me. And Isaac helped a lot too with shooting content. So
that video you just did with Kyle the other day at his freestyle setup at his house, dude, there's some solid gimbal work in there.
Oh, thanks. I haven't even seen it yet. I saw the raw footage, but I haven't watched Kyle's edit, and I haven't edited it, but I need to check it out.
I was somewhere, I can't remember, where I couldn't have the sound on, and I was just watching it with no sound. But I was like, there's some really good shots there. And then that sparked the conversation on Saturday at the event with Kyle. I'm like, Kyle, I'm free the first week of November. We should come and shoot something at your compound, like a kind of going into the season, a little preseason edit, because he's got a hell of a setup there.
Yeah, he did a really good job. So he bought my freestyle compound, which I think you already know this. I think most people kind of picked up on that. I got injured, sold my stuff to him. He moved it up to his place, and he set it up like 100 times better than I did. My setup was like pretty ghetto and like rushed, but he has a lot more experience in equipment and did a really good job setting it up. So everything's super clean, and his in run is super cool because it was like between trees right up against a busy road. So you just get like, you can get a lot of unique shots, but you should definitely go up there. I bet he'll have a bunch more tricks dialed in by then too.
Yeah. It goes over his driveway, doesn't it?
Yeah. He built a little jump to jump over his driveway so he doesn't have to run through the dirt like on the driveway.
Can you imagine being like his UPS guy? Pulling in the driveway and a sled jumps over and then hits a 75-foot comp ramp.
Yeah, no, I've never thought about that. That's where your brain goes. Yeah. You got to build that into the YouTube video.
That's what I was thinking as I was saying it. I should chat with the UPS guy. Can we get a shot of you making a delivery? Oh, he can be delivering 509 product. There we go.
There you go. Marketing.
You got to write that down.
Yeah, you do. Jot that down. It's a good idea. It was really sick seeing Kyle do freestyle at Heydays because
he learned what was he doing? Rock solid or holy grabs?
I don't know the difference, honestly.
So let's see. Holy grab is from the bars to the seat letting
That's
go.
What he was doing.
Rock solid is going from double grab, letting go.
Holy grab.
Yeah, which is gnarlier for sure.
Yeah.
Like you're floating back from the bars and grabbing that seat. Yeah, dude, he's a maniac.
Yeah, he has some a lot of determination, some raw talent, and then he's just built to like take so many crashes. I know. I've seen him crash so many times that in a way that would break normal people. It would break me. Mm-hmm. He just gets up and, oh, that kind of hurt. Like, I'm going to do it again. Like,
I remember, this is kind of a weird way to say this, but I remember watching him change.
Whoa.
In the parking lot somewhere putting base layers on. And I just remember he looked like he'd been like running through a paintball fight or like a paintball war, like just the bruises on that guy. I mean, he was just everywhere. He had scars and bruises and like welts from just impacts and crashes. And I'm like, dude, I wouldn't be walking for a week. And he's just going back out there and sending it day after day. Yeah. Kind of
and
a
he
warrior.
Doesn't complain about the pain.
Yeah, like, see, that's where we differ.
Yeah, I'll let everyone know. I want them to know, like, dude,
Same.
like I fucked up yesterday and I hurt today.
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
But no, I'll watch him like barely be able to get out of a hotel bed.
Yeah.
Go put his knee braces on, and you can tell like he looks like he's gonna start sweating. He's in so much pain. Yeah. But doesn't mention it once.
Yeah, that's a special kind of nuts a little bit, but that's Kyle.
Yeah, I mean he gets it done.
Yeah. I'm really curious also, there's kind of backtracking here a little bit. I think talking about the YouTube thing is exactly the mindset you probably had wanting to implement that into that upcoming clinic, was pushing guys how to film a little bit more and put themselves out there.
Yeah.
What is kind of the end goal? Like, do you have, for the guys leaving that clinic, you just want them to be able to go home and be able to pick up a camera and how to promote themselves in a way that's, get people's attention a bit more? I mean, what kind of is the goal of that clinic specifically? It's kind of a hard question to ask because you got so many different elements within that clinic, but it interests me. That's why I'm curious where your headspace is at with that.
There's only so much you can do in 2 days, but I would like to leave them with a solid outline to build upon. Like, this is bits and pieces of what you need to make it happen. Right. And you're going to have to put it together. But here are some of the main principles I learned, through my journey, and most likely they'll be helpful to you. And you're going to have to put it into, you can't follow my template. There is no template to be a pro sledder or to make money off sledding. But here's a few things I did, a few things that may help you in your journey. If you can implement this into your own template and make it happen, it's going to be helpful. And I think a lot of it too is just being around people that are trying to accomplish the same thing is motivating and inspiring. And, we might sit around after a day of riding and just discuss ideas, and, they might have some really good ideas, and maybe they won't use that idea, but the next guy sitting on the couch will.
Yeah, that's cool. It's such a different approach. I mean, everything historically has been level 1, level 2, level 3. Let's learn how to side hill. Let's learn how to, transition from one side to the other. And that's just a whole new ball game right there. Your potential. I think you're going to learn a lot from it in the first few and be able to refine it, and do it in the future year after year. But I think that's a really neat one, especially for the newer, I want to say, obviously it's a bit more advanced riding set, but that up and coming newer generation of sledders, I think would take a lot from that.
Yeah. It's kind of based off, like, I have these guys coming to advanced clinics and they're hard to teach. Like, if I had guys coming in that can link 5 or 6 hopovers together in a bow tie, it's like, honestly, I don't want to critique that guy and tell him like to move his foot back or forward. Like, right. He's got it. Like, what am I going to teach him? Like, I don't, at that point, it's just his personal riding style. He doesn't need critiquing. But if he wants a sponsor, or if he wants to know what angle to shoot a hop over from to make it look gnarly, well, I can help in that area.
Yeah, that's rad. Man, I'm gonna definitely sign up for a clinic. I gotta figure out how to shoot a hop over from the right angle.
I think you already know that. But we do look at it different, because you look at a cinematic view of a hop over. I look at, like, how do I make this hop over look more gnarly? Like, can I shoot it does it look gnarly from above or below? Do I want to do a hop over around the tree, or does that make it look too cluttered?
Right.
And you're thinking like, oh, there's a sick mountain range and the sun's shining perfectly. Like, and he does a hop over. Like, my focus is showing a rider's capability, and your focus is cinematic shot.
Definitely. Yeah. You're one of the few people, actually probably one of the only, I figure out each guy I ride with and film with, their style. You all have a different style. You all have different features you navigate towards. And my mindset changes as a filmer with whatever rider I'm with. It's like, okay, I know Sane likes this type of stuff. I know, Maverick wants this type of stuff. Borchers hits this type of stuff. You and Kyle, confidently I can say, are the two that I still will come into a zone and go, I have no idea what you guys want to do in here, because you're going to look at something that I kind of think like they might want to go ride something in that, but I don't see anything possible. And then you'll look at it for like a couple minutes and go, yeah, I think I got this right here. And I'm like, all right, man. So that for me is fun, because I have to figure out how to capture that. That's what's tough about what you guys are doing. You're riding at such a gnarly and creative level. To capture it, if you're bonking your track off a rock or something, and you're doing a re-entry where you literally are riding rock for a second, or it exposes rock, like, there's so much happening, it's so hard to capture that. And that kind of plays into what you were saying of how to make a hop over look gnarly or whatever it may be. But in your specific instance, and it's just, dude, the stuff, the features you guys are riding, it is hard to capture.
Yeah, I believe it. Well, and we don't even always know what we're doing, because we like start out with a re-entry off a pillow, and then it's like, well, this could lead to a hop over, a downhill hop over, maybe a re-entry off another pillow 20 feet away. And you just kind of land and make these split second choices right after you land one maneuver, what you're going to do next. Yeah. And sometimes you even bail on that idea partway through, and you just keep it pinned and like ride something else out. I
know I have so many shots where you do something really cool, and then you're completely out of frame because you just like randomly started going this way, and you didn't expect it. That's just the way it played out. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, that was awesome, but I didn't get any of it. Like I physically saw it, but the camera didn't.
I kind of just learned to expect that. Like, he's probably going to miss this shot because I'm behind like a clump of trees and it's impossible to get. But I want to keep my own like mental state going and kind of flow going. And
Yep.
so land one thing, go do another, come back, try to get back into frame eventually.
It's such a battle in this industry is capturing a continuous line efficiently. I've like thought about hiring out like a POV guy or something, but even
That could be sick.
those are even tough too, because usually it's a really wide angle lens, so you look tiny down there, and you got to get the right. And then you got to figure out how to get the guy in the back country.
Yeah.
So I was like, do I figure out how to fly POV? What do we do? But I'm hoping from the media side of the industry for guys like yourself that there's something here in the near future to be able to capture these lines more efficiently. And I mean, I usually just have you for a moment in time. It's like, here's your window, and then either Mother Nature gets in the way or something, and it's tough. So that's why it's neat with your like advanced clinics, or guys can come out and see it in person. And I think that really kind of drives it home a bit more of what your mindset is and what your exit is and what your entry is to these lines. But it's hard to capture it.
Yeah, I think you do a pretty good job of it, but
I'm not fishing for compliments. I'm talking about you. You're so gnarly that it's just so hard to capture it.
There's so many factors in backcountry riding, and what's fun to ride is not easy to film. Like the tighter the trees, the more fun. And if you throw some pillows in tight trees, like that's like an ideal playground, but it's almost impossible to film.
Yeah.
So it's for filming, it's almost better to get like an open face with pillows. So then you have the features to do maneuvers on, but then it doesn't look that gnarly because it's a big open hill with a few pillows.
Yeah.
So it's some sort of balance between, an ideal playground, but still open and manageable enough to film.
Isn't that interesting? Some of the gnarliest stuff you do and all these riders do, like not even their sponsors see it unless it's on a GoPro.
And a GoPro is like, it never shows how gnarly something is.
It just kind of goes like, they just take your word that was sick, unless you're like with them and you get to see it firsthand. Like there's so much, it just goes forever unseen.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of really good riders out there that don't get very much recognition just because they don't want to put the work in to get the content.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of riders that kick ass and they're just not into the filming side. I guess it's like kind of fortunate for me that I love the filming aspect. Like to me, that's its own challenge. So I would rather go out and try to get shots. Like I take more enjoyment in setting up camera angles and trying to get a shot of a maneuver. Like it's all tied together. And you have to do it all to have a good time. And for me, but those guys that just want to ride, like, why would they get a camera on? So they're just kick-ass riders that nobody knows about.
Yeah, I was going to say on the flip side of that, I also have the utmost respect for those guys that are absolute shredders who don't give two shits about sponsors. Like, they're like, this is just my weekend escape, and I just happen to be really good at it. But he's like, I don't care to film it. I don't care about sponsors, which is kind of rock and roll on its own.
Yeah.
in its own
there's
sense.
something pure about that.
Yeah.
Those guys that are so talented and so good at what they do, but aren't necessarily out looking for recognition.
There's so many guys like that in BC.
Yeah, they're really.
I'll just be in like a random zone in BC, and some guy with like skis strapped to his sled will come this like gnarly line and just keep on going. Just some no-name dude just out skiing backcountry and shredding on a sled.
Yeah, I think there's more there than anywhere else.
Yeah. You've actually seen some of that firsthand. Wasn't Tanner Hall up in your neck of the woods this last winter?
Yeah, so he lives just a couple hours north, and he loves skiing Sealy area. So
Yeah.
I've ran into him a lot in the parking lot. He's actually like a super chill dude.
Oh, yeah, he's chill. He's like stoned most of the time.
That's not for me to judge, but for me to comment on whether he is or isn't. But
for those who are listening, don't know, Tanner Hall is like a multi-X Games, I think multi-gold medalist too. Freestyle backcountry skier. He's done everything from super pipe to half pipe to backcountry, and he did Chad's Gap in Utah, an iconic gap. Came up short and broke both his legs, and like just a legend in the ski world. And yeah, I saw some of his lines up in I won't name the zone because it's kind of a little honey hole, but I saw some of his tracks up there, and it was like those guys are on a different level.
Yeah. Yeah, there's this one zone. I think it's the one you're thinking of.
It's a continent.
Yeah. A little honey hole in Sealy, and I'll see his tracks in there a lot, and it's like a booter off a cliff, and I'm just like, what on earth? And then I see his video. Like he'll post the video and like, oh, hey, that's my side hill track.
Yeah, right. It's kind of cool for you too.
Yeah.
We're doing the same thing. We're like, look at Tanner's tracks, and you're like, look at my tracks.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Do you ever watch any of that stuff? Snowboard, Ski World. You take any kind of lines from them? Obviously they can navigate through some way tighter, steeper terrain, but they definitely look at the backcountry in a different way than we do.
Yeah, they definitely do. I just see the like viral clips on Instagram, but I don't necessarily like study them. I do watch a lot of moto stuff, like Axel's style that he has on a bike, and Raha and some of those other guys. So it's easier for me to understand moto because it's a motor, and I have more experience on a dirt bike than I do skis. So maybe I definitely get some inspiration from moto. I don't know if I do as much from skiing.
Yeah. I've seen some glimmers of it in the future of sled world, but I've talked with you about it. I would love to see like Hodges, for example, stringing some stuff together in the backcountry. Like obviously a sled is way harder to land in a wheelie than a bike.
Yeah.
But some stuff like step up to wheelie, and then maybe it's like, I don't know. I kind of always have visioned a perfect like plateau step up, and then the back end of it drops off again.
Yeah.
And like step up, land in a wheelie, and then like wheelie off a drop or something. And like whether it's just a straight air or like wheelie to like heel clicker off of it. I think that'd be so cool. And that's kind of the next level in the backcountry, I feel personally.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the direction it's going to go. Like we had Brant blowing everyone's minds with the tree riding, and then next, it was like re-entries and bow ties and re-entries in the trees, whips in the trees, Turcotte's 270s, like that stuff. And I think the next big thing coming is wheelies, and maybe endos, or who knows. And then stringing those together. Maybe it's I don't know that you could land a 270 flip in a wheelie, but a wheelie into a 270 flip, and we've seen a little bit of that from Turcotte and Andreas. We've seen a little tease of it. So we've seen like just enough to know there's a lot more possible than what's being done.
You ever see that clip of Andy's little brother, Cole?
Yeah.
Thomas?
Yeah, he did a wheelie to like a cornice drop, right?
He was going fast.
Yeah, that looks scary.
It was cool because it almost felt like, since the wheelie was so fast, that he was already in the air before he went off. And the brake tap, it was satisfying. I see things like that, and I'm like, that's the future of kind of backcountry riding, is stringing stuff together like that. Yeah.
Who do you think is going to be the first to start pushing that style a little bit more?
Brett's already shown a bit of it with that nollie off the cliff. Andreas has the playground for it in Sweden up there, except their problem is you go 40 feet this way, you land on a giant rock.
Right. Maybe he'll be back in BC this year. I mean, like COVID travel stuff's kind of chilling out.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, you obviously, I hope for you, once you get back to just absolutely shredding, you're my first pick, to be completely honest.
That's pretty kind of you. But.
Well, no, because there's some reasoning behind this. Because Brett's like, he can go big, right? Like really big, and have
he's by far the best in the air. Like most skilled at flips, tricks, and just smooth jumps.
I haven't seen him bail from like a big jump in years.
I don't think he has to, because he just gets them right every time.
But he's not the technical rider, right? Like I can't necessarily see him right off the bat getting it dialed, being able to like land in a wheelie and all that. I mean, he's a smaller dude too, but I don't know. I think he'll get there for sure. He'll probably hear this now, and they'll light a fire under his ass too. I love you, Brett. You're one of the gnarliest guys ever. But my initial thought is like, I could see you doing it, and I'd probably see like Andreas doing it. Or just any of those random Swedes. There was that one guy doing like a 270 flip off a watercross sled.
Oh, yeah. I forget his name.
Coming up on shore.
Those guys are insane. He's insane specifically. To do a 270 flip to sand.
Yeah.
Like off of water, up a wooden ramp to sand.
In like July.
Yeah. What on earth?
Brutal. But, well, sweet, dude. You got anything else that we didn't hit on? Any big news? Anything? Any boring news? Literally anything? I don't want to cut you off here if you got anything else.
I think we kind of touched on everything that's happening in my life and relevant. And yeah, I'm excited for this year. Like I said, I'm going to be pushing business, and I'm hoping to get a good foundation of business going this year. So the following year I can, I don't know, don't want to say pull back from business, but really get back to riding. Cause that's what I'm thinking about. That's what I want to do. Like I'm not an entrepreneur at heart. Like I'm becoming an entrepreneur because I want to make money off sledding and want to ride with guys and influence them so they can, accomplish their goals. But at heart, like I just want to rip a sled and go big and push myself and progress. So
yeah, I feel that. That's why it says Fueling Your Passion podcast.
Yeah.
And I'm a sledder before all of this too.
Yeah.
I respect the hell out of that. Yeah, dude, everything you've gone over today has been, a ton of information, I think, that people haven't really known, and or at least we elaborated on a handful of things. And I'm stoked for you. I'm stoked for the future for you. I'm wishing you a speedy recovery, dude. Seriously, I hope nothing but the best and that you get back out there and doing what you love. But yeah, dude, I appreciate taking the time to come and sit down. Are you going to be going to any snow shows or anything? Any places people can overlap with you?
No, I don't have any planned. I'll likely be at the Spokane show, but
okay.
I think that's all I'm doing. Just because the treatment I'm doing here in Spokane's 5 days a week. So I'm pretty tied up right now.
Well, that's November something.
I think
November 12th. Okay. Well, if you guys are around the area, hopefully, maybe. I'm not making you come. Caleb might be there. If you are, we'll confirm on social media. So thanks again, buddy. If you guys aren't following Caleb on social, I don't know what you're doing. Check him out on social. Check him out on YouTube. And then for us here, if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, we really appreciate the reviews you guys have been giving. Those help us a ton. And if you're on YouTube, leave a comment. Obviously, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Thanks, Caleb.
Yeah, thanks, David.